President, Mr. K.V Kamath, will make introductory remark, and after that, we can take your questions. To ask a question, please just raise your hand, present yourself, and name the media.
Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We are honored to be in Cape Town for our fourth annual meeting, which has just concluded this afternoon. We had our Board of Directors meeting and the Board of Governors meeting. I would broadly explain where we are. I'm sure there will be a press handout which will explain it in more details. We ended last year with loan approvals of around $8 billion for about 30 projects. This meeting here, we considered 5 more loans for an amount of around $1.2 billion. The total that the bank has approved to date is around $9.2 billion. The bank is fully operational. Capital has come in as scheduled, and we have started operations at full scale in all our member countries. In terms of our own strategy going forward, we are working out of the headquarters and regional centers. We have the Africa Regional Center, which opened 2 years back now, 2017 middle, and was fully geared up last year. That has been very facilitative and has helped us in getting projects on the go. Our total assistance to South Africa as of now is roughly around $1.5 billion. We have a fair pipeline for the rest of the year, and we expect that by the end of the year, we should have done for South Africa around $2.3 billion by way of assistance. This compares to what we expect to do by the end of the year for all the members put together of roughly around $5 billion. We believe that there are opportunities in South Africa which we will scale up as we go along, and this will facilitate further growth. Key outcome of this meeting was to touch base with our relationships in the country and basically push what we believe we could do in this country to a larger audience, as it were. The city of Cape Town has been an excellent host, and we go back taking very good memories of our visit here. I'm open to questions.
Assis Moreira, Valor Econômico, the Brazil Economic Newspaper. President, what about the expansion of the bank? When do you think the process to have new members will take place, begin actually? Second question, when do you think it's possible to have financing in local currency in Brazil? And the third question, when it will take place the next annual conference of the bank?
So yes. So let me start by answering the last question first. The next annual conference will be in Brazil. Time is yet to be decided, but it will be the ideal time is around this time for us because we are closed earlier, and we would like to have the meeting as early as possible. But that will be in certain consultation with the Brazilian government. In Brazil, local currency financing, we are in the process of exploring opportunities. To be realistic, expect that that would be only around the end of the year that we would be able to launch a bond in Brazil. End of this year. You had 2 more questions, right? Or was it 1 more? Expansion of the bank in terms of members. There were discussions today in the board. I think we have broadly scheduled that we should take a decision at the annual BRICS summit, which will take place in Brazil this year. That is towards the end of the year, and I think that's where we expect a a decision to be taken in terms of membership. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamath, from Reuters. During your speech, you touched on local currency bond issuances. I think you named 3 countries: South Africa, India, and Russia. Of those 3, which ones are coming first? And could you give me a total? It would be great if you could break it down for South Africa, Q3, 5 billion rand, etc. And you do that for the other
Sure.
as well. Thanks.
So I will give the sequencing, and then I'll ask Leslie to give the details. Based on current expectations, South Africa is going to be the first one. It will be very near term, which Leslie will explain timing, and I think we are looking at both Russia and India in parallel. That would certainly be in the second half of the year, probably around between the early fourth quarter, late third quarter is what we are looking at, both in India and Russia. South Africa is imminent, and Leslie can talk about.
Thank you very much. With respect to the bank's local currency ambitions, as you might know, the bank launched its first program in local currency in China. It was approved by the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, and NAFMI, the regulatory authority there, towards the end of December, early Jan. And the bank did its first issue under that 10 billion renminbi program on the 22nd and 25th of February this year. So we raised 3 billion renminbi in China. What we intend to do now, as the President has said, is to register programs in each of the BRICS countries. The value of a program, as you know, is to avoid the situation of doing single issuances and going through constant regulatory approvals. It's a very costly exercise and it's not very efficient. So in South Africa, we have applied to the regulatory bodies, firstly the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, to do an inward listing because we are a foreign entity, if you like, on the JSE, and to register a bond here in South Africa. We applied for a 10 billion rand program, and we have received approval to proceed. The bank is now in the stage of implementing that program. We have already appointed banks. For example, Standard Bank has been appointed as the lead arranger for our inaugural issuance. Absa Bank has been appointed as a co-arranger for that inaugural issuance. And we have on the list of projects that the President has spoken about, we have 2 projects where RAND funding is required. One is the TCTA water project, and the second one is the Industrial Development Corporation. Those 2 projects combined, TCTA is around 3.3 billion rand. The IDC is about 1.1 billion. So already we know with a high degree of certainty that about 4.4 billion rand needs to be raised in the domestic market. There's still 1 or 2 I's to sort of dot and T's to cross with respect to the overall approvals, but we are in all likelihood will be formally given the status as a domestic issuer. Although we are a foreign entity, we'll be given the status as a domestic issuer, which will enhance the appeal of our paper for domestic investors because there are very few highly rated issuers of New Development Bank in our range. We are AA plus international rating, as you know. So for diversification purposes, large institutional investors would like to buy the paper of NDB. So in South Africa, therefore, in sum, we are ready to proceed with the program. It is likely going to be in the first part of the second half of this year. So within the next 12 to 16 weeks, we will do the first issuance in South Africa. The President already spoke about the sequence. We have also just received approval from our Board of Directors for a ruble bond program that is currently under regulatory, that will now receive the regulatory treatment. And then after that, we will do the Brazilian program. Thank you.
TV Brixana Kazakova. Mr. Kamath, I'm here. I'm here. TV Briggs. Yeah, I'm here. Could you say what? Could you say what are the main requirements to the potential projects which could be approved by your bank, by the bank?
Very good question, since it takes me to the roots. We are a bank set up by developing countries. and for the good. And one, say, theme line that we have used is, we are here to listen and learn, and then do what is required in consultation with our members. So every project that we have done so far has been originated that way. And we also articulated very early that we would like to be green. And our initial emphasis was on green power, but we have now diversified into a variety of green activities, including water. And water, in certain countries, it is taking water, along with that providing sanitation, so that the whole that's the ecosystem, the health ecosystem is in a holistic way addressed. You get water, you address sanitation, and so on. That's happening almost in every member country that we have looked at. In South Africa, it is just water at this stage. That's one stage. The other focus along these lines has been connectivity, since connecting rural areas to urban areas, and so on. It's not happened so far in South Africa, but I'm sure will happen in due course. In almost all other countries, this has happened. So power, water, sanitation, and transportation linkages, I think, have been the key areas. A new area that is now emerging, and it emerges really from what I term as the developments that are taking place with the phraseology that is used, the fourth industrial revolution. So there are countries which are now telling us that, look, maybe we need some support in setting up the vocational training that is required to prepare young people for the fourth industrial revolution. So we are looking at projects in that space, and I'm sure that once we learn from how that sort of a project is structured and goes along, immediately it gets scaled in other countries. So there's a wide variety of things we do. Basic infrastructure is at the core of our activity. Within that, sustainability is a key focal area for us. I would say that almost everything we have done so far is in the sustainable area. And going forward, there will be projects in what I would call as areas which we might not have looked at in the past, but which will happen, like skilling and health and so on and so forth, which will ride on newer developments.
Thank you. And one more question. What could you say about Russian projects which are now in developing?
Yeah, in fact, it so happened that the last project I mentioned was in Russia. It's a very innovative project in terms of skilling and vocational training. We're also looking at a medical center in one of the Tyumen in Russia. And of course, in Russia, some of the interesting projects have been on water, getting water to a series of villages along the Volga River. Also, in terms of getting the cultural heritage of a lot of these towns and villages back to its original repair stage. In Russia, we also did a very interesting project on judicial reform. That is, the judicial sector is reforming. They need a whole lot of technology in terms of computers and IT technology, really. And we are funding that effort in terms of modernizing the entire judicial system. So each country has provided us a vast variety of interesting projects, and I think as we showcase them, other countries then pick up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Chantal Cousins from the African News Agency. I just wondered if you could just break down the loans to ESCOM.
But why don't I ask my colleagues to provide these details? So far, we have done 2 loans to ESCOM. One was done a couple of years back. That was a transmission project, a green transmission project, for transmitting green power from one of their plants to here. And the one we considered yesterday was basically a clean environment project. The loan is entirely for making sure that the discharge from the large power plant that they are setting up is contained and is up to international specifications, by basically getting the effluent or the emissions treated before it is discharged. So it's only for that. It is not incremental coal-fired power that we are funding. And we understand that this approach to environmental treatment is required under law. So we are in fact facilitating that power generation so that it happens. Amounts, do you want to just talk?
Yeah, just as President Kamath says, we have in our portfolio 2 loans for ESCOM totaling $600 million. The first one and 180. The loan agreement was just signed this morning and at the opening of annual meetings. And yesterday, NDB board approved the second one totaling $480 million. Basically, as the president said, and try to address environmental concerns, particularly related to the power generation in Medupi area.
Good afternoon, Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Zimbabwe, would the bank be looking at loaning money to Zimbabwe, considering that World Bank is rather hesitant to do that?
We would lend to only member countries. So, just now the BRICS countries are the member countries, and hence we cannot lend to any other country. Lesotho is an exception because the borrower on record is the South African government. So we are doing the project there for supply to South Africa, and it's a South African sovereign project. So Zimbabwe would not be able to.